Overlord Volume 6, The Man of the Kingdom Part 2. After we set the playground in Part 1, we have all of the fun in Part 2, as this volume is very eventful. It has a bit of everything: fights, flexes, love, twists, schemes, so many things happen, even Climb gets a win. Can you believe that? So let's start by taking a look at the artwork, as they do make it up to us for the somewhat uninspired cover of Volume 5. We have Demiurge doing the intimidating LinkedIn crossed arm pose as he's followed by a fearsome parade of demons. The cover looks bleak and dark, an invading force perturbing the peaceful streets of the capital. And just look at these horrifying faces, just look at this guy. This guy looks like me when I'm on less than 4 hours sleep. This cover is very good. I'm still somewhat bitter that Sebas didn't get a proper cover in Volume 5, but it is what it is. And they do make it up for us this time, as we have double the amount of foldable pages. We have a gorgeous artwork of Entoma fighting the Blue Roses, and they look great, but Entoma just steals the show. I love her design. She's an insectoid, but has a face that is human enough, where it's right at the uncanny valley, where it's sort of pretty but creepy at the same time, and coupled with her insectoid appendages, she looks truly like an aberration worthy of Nazarick. On the other side, we have the ladies of the Blue Roses posing and looking cool. I particularly love the detail that Evileye is just floating, cross-legged, just chillin', and Gagaran's chin line. My goodness, if it wasn't for the chest plate, honestly, she would just be a manlier version of He-Man. I love all of the designs. I also really like Lacuse as the center of this idol group, and I think this is truly one of those artworks that is worthy of being a desktop background. On the additional foldable pages, we have the Six Arms, and I really love how their faces are displayed and how dark they are. It really looks like some sort of fantasy mugshots, really displaying that these are the baddies and part of the spooky underworld. I will say though, it feels a bit cheap to have the same image essentially twice. The author once again bombards us with information about the items, which is mostly just word salad because there's no glossary of items in Overlord, so we have no idea what any of this means, but it sounds cool, I guess. Some of these items are pretty obvious as to what they do. For example, Zero's Boots of Speed clearly boosts his strength. But then we have items like Edstorm, for example, where it's non-descriptive and it just sounds like gibberish. Sylphide, Hate Amber, Brilliant Diamond. Cool. The chapter artworks are also pretty cool, and we get a character page for Victim. Yay! I have this inexplicable affection for the pink fetus, which I cannot describe, but for some reason I think he's really cute. And speaking of inexplicable, Volume 6 starts with Sebas justifying himself to Ainz, and this interaction is a lot of fun. The first thing that should be noted is that during the first part of this conversation, the author strongly hints that Sebas is not talking with Ainz, but with Pandora's actor, and I like that he never explicitly states it, but leaves strong enough clues for the reader to figure it out. Even though I don't mind when things are just said, I really dislike it when authors beat you over the head with a plot point, and the fact that the author has enough trust in his audience's intelligence and knowledge of his characters to pull this off is super cool in my opinion. The hints are scattered throughout the conversation, as Ainz acts much more dramatic and theatrical than usual. Ainz theatrically drew from somewhere unknown a snow-white handkerchief. He casually tossed it in Sebas' direction, with a motion that could be described as fwa. At the same moment, he flourished his cape dramatically, like a stage actor. Sebas was briefly stunned by the strangely theatrical departure, the likes of which he hadn't seen before. Then he says things which Ainz normally wouldn't say, things that the Guardians may think are in character, but we as the reader know it's not. Sebas, are you a dog who obeys the 41 supreme beings, or do you abide by your own will? This Ainz is asking Sebas if he is a dog who obeys, and meanwhile in the previous volume the real Ainz was having an existential crisis, wondering if he treats his NPCs well enough and if he should even start giving them salaries. So it's made quite obvious, even more than in the anime adaptation in my opinion, that this is in fact not Ainz. It is Pandora's actor pretending to be Ainz just in case Sebas has been brainwashed or actually betrayed Nazarick or something. Because when the real Ainz shows up, he says things more like this. "Thanks for meeting me. I didn't think for a moment that Sebas would betray us. You guys are paranoid. That's fine, even I overlook things sometimes." He's much more humble and polite and appreciative of his NPCs. They're his friends' creations. He would never actually call them dogs. Thankfully for Sebas, after a very stressful meeting with his kind but stern overlord, he gets to let out some steam, just bang it out to let go of his frustration in what is one of the funniest stomps in the entire series, and trust me, that's a high bar. It is very satisfying to see bad guys get their face smashed. It's just human nature to enjoy that, and Overlord loves to play with this dynamic, and here in particular it works super well. The Six Arms kept getting hyped up throughout the Man of the Kingdom story arc, with multiple characters saying they're super strong. They even have the foldable pages to build hype, and they even use the classical shonen trope of where a character who's supposed to be strong is revealed to actually be the weakest of the group. Ooh. I will say though, this trope would work a lot better if Succulent was defeated in a grueling, tough, hard-fought battle, instead of just being one-shot by Brain, so the bar is sort of not super high to clear, but still massive hype coming in for the Six Arms. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody who reads Overlord, despite the massive hype coming in, Sebas just absolutely Goomba stomps every single one of these fools and obliterates every single one of their gimmicks by just slamming his big stats right on their foreheads. And the author often does this in Overlord, where a character is hyped up and then quickly removed from the story, and the reader may have this feeling of, I wanted to see more from that character. The biggest example of this is the next volume, Volume 7. But here, I'll be honest, I didn't really care to see much more from the Six Arms. I just enjoyed the entertainment. Sebas is one of my favorite NPCs, and just see him wrecking chaos on these underground baddies just felt so good. We follow this hilarious pattern of the narrator just giving a detailed backstory on each of their abilities, like, "Ed Storm was born with this incredible ability and that makes her lethal in combat." And then Sebas just goes, boink, fight over. To me it was pretty funny, Zero's defeat in particular, being completely humiliated before being split open like a watermelon, was very funny, even if I can understand if some people may think it's anticlimactic, because the fight between him and Brain would also have been entertaining. Still, this is the Sebas Revenge Tour, and he does not share the spotlight. Staying on the Sebas thread though, I'll be honest, I really didn't like the Tsuare romantic storyline. I thought it just felt super awkward the entire time. Sebas saved her because of his instincts to help the weak. It's how he's made. He didn't particularly choose her, and he would have saved any other person in that situation. After he saved her, his demeanor was always one of kindness. There was never any hints or any strong indications that there was any sort of feelings brewing or any romance starting to grow between the two. From her side, I kind of see it. She went through some pretty horrible stuff and she's had her brain scrambled, and by receiving kindness from this elegant, debonair man oozing raw masculine magnetism, I can understand if she just emotionally latched onto him. I just don't see it from his side. I can't see them as lovers. Even visually the pairing just looks ridiculous. She's a teenager and he's an old man. Yes, I know it's only visually speaking. In terms of actual age, as in years of existence, Sebas is even probably younger than Tsuare, but still he looks like her grandfather. Visually it just looks off. He looks like a family member, not a lover. Let's just say that if the police saw the two of them kissing on the street, they would definitely ask for Tsuare's identification. And most importantly is that there is no real chemistry between these characters. The author is very good at writing compelling dynamics between characters, but here I really don't think there's any romance dynamic that makes it easy to root for them as a couple. It's just, I don't see it. And yet, when Tsuare saw the Dragonoid butler, she could not hold her heat and kissed him, and he seemed a little bit flustered with this, and he reacted way better than me because I was just cringing and dumbfounded. I don't know, it's perhaps to me the most bizarre storyline in the entirety of Overlord. Even if the lady is so psychologically broken that she's more comfortable around monsters than she is humans, having an NPC in a romantic relationship with a human like this is just strange. It feels awkward, it feels out of place. I don't think they're a good match, and I think this storyline is super forced. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you like this storyline? Am I being too harsh? Let me know. Moving on to the Blue Roses, it's the first time we see this particular idol group in action, and unlike the Six Arms, they do live up to the hype. The fight with Entoma is very well executed, where the author manages to create a dynamic where the Blue Roses are the underdogs and also the good guys, or should I say the good gals, and so the reader is rooting for them. But at the same time, Entoma is part of Nazarick, the protagonist's guild, and is also, dare I say, a fan favorite. Some of you even like her way too much, making lewd comments about her appearance, which you are freaky, but I still wish you the best. And of course we know from Volume 3 that Ainz does not take it kindly when his NPCs are harmed, so this battle really walks a very interesting narrative tightrope where we're sort of rooting for the Blue Roses to perhaps win, but if they do, for Entoma to escape away safely, or maybe for Entoma to win, but for the Blue Roses to escape, or at least Evileye to live to fight another day. Basically a fantasy version of have fun as long as nobody gets hurt. The fight itself is quite engaging, as Entoma is individually stronger and more fearsome in my opinion. The insect theme really creeps me out, but the Blue Roses are craftier, more coordinated, more numerous. Evileye, having a spell that hard counters Entoma, could be seen as a plot convenience. However, because of the mana cost on that spell, she has to use it sparingly and at the right time, making it feel smart and resourceful instead of cheap. The fight was great. Even though I love the classic Overlord stomps, I also think the author is very good at writing fights that are hard fought between two sides of roughly the same power level. In true Overlord fashion though, one does not mess with Nazarick for long, because the power balance completely backflips once Demiurge, or should I say Yaldabaoth, enters the fray. And once again, the Overlord dark humor never fails to get a giggle out of me. After such a performance and grueling effort against Entoma, Demiurge just pops in and one-shots Gagaranantia like it was nothing. It's super depressing, but also kind of funny at the same time, and he was super nonchalant about it, and Demiurge is a sick freak, which makes it even better. But as good as Demiurge is, Ainz completely steals the show once he pops in the scene, and the fact that he is just stumbling his way through this elaborate plan that he has no idea about, while both Nazarick and the Riestes kingdom think that he has everything under control, is just super funny. And not only is he unaware of Demiurge's plan, he is also oblivious to the fact that he just awoke dormant feelings inside of our masked vampire. The transition from Evileye being a very cold, calculated character to a hysterical maiden in love is super funny and off character, and that's the contrast that makes it so good. She just cannot resist our sexy skeleton in armor, and what really makes these scenes so funny is that she is aware and having massive cognitive dissonance about it. She cannot believe that she's acting so giddy and so childish just because a man is stronger than her. She's fighting her own feelings, and that's the dynamic that makes it so funny. Volume 6 is not the first time that Nazarick has pretended to be the good guys. It is, however, the first time, and will not be the last, that they are literally playing both sides. It's kind of sad to see the people of the kingdom desperately fighting against this invading force while fighting alongside the very people on the same team without knowing about it. Whenever a character says something like, "Momon will save us," I'm like, oof, if only they knew. And Ainz, for as awkward as he is with his acting, shows that he is more mature and more pragmatic than he was before. Whether it's his humanity slowly slipping away from him as he sinks further into his bony self, or perhaps learning his lesson from losing his cool back in Volume 3, here he does a pretty good job. When Evileye reports that they defeated Entoma, the mood goes very sour very quickly, but Ainz has the presence of mind this time to assess that, okay, Entoma is fine, she can be taken care of, it is more useful to be on the good side of Evileye. And speaking of good side, I have to talk about my boy Brain. Despite all of the messy stuff that happens in this volume, he is to me one of the highlights of volume 6. First, we see him learning that having something to fight for makes you stronger, which is obvious for almost everybody, but he is a man of single focus, so give him a break. And now we see him overcome his fear and survival instincts. Strangely, however, the feeling in his chest, the desire to run away at full speed that he'd had since arriving in the capital, was gone. Suddenly, he remembered the view of a young man's back. Brain was always strong, for a human, but you get the sense that his spirit was weak, or at least weaker than Gasev's, perhaps even weaker than Climb's. But here he manages to overcome that, to be in full alignment of mind, body, soul, and spirit. He has now reached sword nirvana, whatever that means. So no more hesitation, only action. History does not remember the cowards. He unleashes his ultimate move, inspired by the very rival he wants to beat, a move possible only by using his domain, a skill that he worked so hard to achieve. And with all of that, he manages to clip Shaltier's nail, which sounds super pathetic, but it is impressive. Only Overlord can make nail clipping be an epic thing. Even Shaltier is just confused and underwhelmed, while Brain is having the best moment of his life. You cut my pinky fingernail a little bit, so what? The sheer contrast and bizarreness in this scene makes it incredible, and the fact that we have been following Brain's storyline for 3 volumes now makes this moment very rewarding. Still, if you're recommending Overlord to someone, please do not use this scene as an example. Bro, and then he clips her nail, bro, it's so epic, bro. People will look at you very underwhelmed, like you're just crazy. Overall, Volume 6 is a very solid volume with many great moments, definitely a very memorable one in the Overlord collection. I will say that both Man of the Kingdom volumes have a lot of POV shifts, which can make the reading experience a bit dizzy sometimes. Me personally, I like seeing the inner thoughts of all of these different characters, but there is a noticeable shift between the previous volumes and volumes 5 and 6. Previously, the points of view were more focused. Volume 6 is very much a 2-act volume where the Sebas storyline concludes and transitions into the Yaldabot storyline using the 8 fingers as the common thread. Personally, I like Sebas a lot, and I was also more invested in the first part of the volume due to it directly following the previous volume. However, it doesn't feel like the volume loses steam halfway through, because the addition of Ainz and especially Evileye really spiced things up. As always, leave a comment with what you thought of this volume and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ciao!